and welcome to a special episode of We the People, where we continue an open conversation about a perceived stigma that we've been talking about on NDTV for the last few weeks: infertility. Did you know that infertility affects approximately 15% of Indian couples? Yet, because of that stigma and a lack of awareness of what causes infertility, thousands suffer silently and they don't seek help. For infertility to be treated, we have to first understand how prevalent it is, why it occurs, and what we can do to resolve it. And so over the past few weeks, we have tried to create awareness about this widespread issue and clear some of the myths associated with infertility and answer your questions about how to treat it. We've spoken with doctors, with fertility specialists and international experts to understand the science and its finer details. And today on We the People, we'll also hear from women about their experiences dealing with infertility and how they sought help, how they sought treatment for it. Erica and Savita, welcome to the show. Before we start our conversation though, I would like to also welcome our other guests. We have Professor Dr. Fatimi, Group Medical Director of the Our Fertility Clinic. We have Dr. Sumesh Mittal here, CEO of the Our Fertility Clinic, Dr. Parul Katiyar, a co-medical director of the same clinic, and Dr. K.D. Nair, President of the Indian Fertility Society. And of course, there's Erica and Savita, who have gone through fertility treatment, who join us. Thank you so much for your time. Erica, to you first. You've dealt with infertility for 16 years. It's not easy for many women to speak publicly about dealing with infertility. So we're especially grateful to you for joining us. What can you tell us about your experience?
16 years is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
Especially from where I come from, my culture. My culture don't allow a person that is infertile, they won't accept you. And secondly, if your in-laws want to help you or whosoever want to help you, they will give you herbs, those country herbs. I don't know, they are like leaves. They boil, you drink. Some of them you have to incite. You have to do so many things. So that's what I did. And I did them. At the end of the day, it affected me greatly. It was so bad that even when I came, Dr. Sonutu had small issues. She was, what did you take? Why did you do this? What? As I said, I did everything out of ignorance.
Yes.
I felt that I wanted to do this to get my result. That was my concern. But everything was just done out of ignorance. No one to guide me in the process. But at least I have a good doctor now that is guiding me every day.
So I think very fascinating what Erica is basically saying here is that she feels that she's wasted a lot of time because she was going for herbs and all these other myths and quacks. That's why it's important to do shows like this, because we can help people who need the time so they don't feel like they've spent 16 years. They could have had children earlier. Savita, you've had 3 children and all 3 of them through IVF. Choosing a clinic, a doctor, a treatment, that can be quite a process. How does one pick a fertility clinic and doctor for treatment?
At the time, I am lucky that I don't waste more time in infertility process. And Dr. Sonu, I meet after 4 years of my marriage. I have no problem. All reports of my and my husband is normal, but we don't conceive. Our infertility reason is hidden. That is the main problem today. If you know the problem, then you can treat it.
Yeah.
But you don't know what is the problem, then that is the most terrible condition for a couple. But doctor chosen is very difficult task. At the time, or in 2016, when I meet Dr. Sonu, first time my IVF is also failure. But doctor behavior is most important in this process. If doctor is friendly, understandable, and you think all things in happened, all family, but the cost of happiness is more important for everyone. And at that time, children's give this happiness is not describable.
Thank you, Savita. I think you put it across very well. Let's bring in Dr. Fatimi here. Doctor, as we heard Erica talk, there's this clearly a low level of awareness, a low level of the facts, how to, as Savita says, if you don't know what the problem is, if you're not told what the answers are, where do you start? There's a general discomfort about the topic of fertility. So much misinformation needs to be cleared up. Now, in that context, can you give us a sense of the kind of hand-holding a fertility doctor does for his or her patient? Because as Savita pointed out, in the end, the doctor is crucial. That could be the make or break factor here.
First of all, thank you for having me. And also, I'm thankful for Ms. Erika of sharing her experience. Obviously, infertility is an issue which we used to consider as luxury medicine, like plastic surgery. But this is totally wrong. You see, there are countries, I would say India, especially in Africa. I lecture a lot also in Africa. It's a stigma. It's a major issue. Women are expelled from the villages, from the cities, because they cannot have any children. So it's a major issue. And, initially you mentioned, according to WHO, there are 15% of infertility. I think we should be extremely cautious. We need to define where is that infertility, and is the prevalence of 15% the same everywhere in the world? And the answer is clearly no. Having worked in Europe, having traveled around the world lecturing, I can assure you that the prevalence of infertility differs based on the geography where you are. You will have countries where the prevalence of infertility is significantly higher than the 15%. Unfortunately, we don't have real data on these topics. You see, you have countries where you have databases where everything is clearly collected and published officially. Yeah. And unfortunately, there are countries where these data simply do not exist. Everyone is coming out and making some statements, weird statements, without having any solid proof. So I think also the WHO, which recently published 15%, you have to be very cautious. Where does this number come from? Most of these data are collected from Western European countries, from the US and maybe Australia, but that's about it. So personally, I think the prevalence is higher. Now, to answer your question, I think it's extremely important that we have empathy with the patients, that we understand they suffer. It's also important to explain them the etiology of the infertility. What's the cause of infertility? Once you know what is the problem, you can focus on that problem and you can try to solve it, informing the patients adequately and go with them through the journey of fertility treatment.
All right, fascinating. You're absolutely right. And, Dr. Nair, when another point that comes to mind, that reached out to me when Savita was telling us about her experience, was how she said that there was both her and her husband, they had both been checked and they were not able to find out what the cause of infertility. When we talk about preparing the woman so much for treatment, but how do you in fact prepare a couple? Like, how do you get the men also to participate in the process? Or is it only seen as a woman's problem?
No. You see, whenever a couple comes to us for the first visit, the couple is given counseling. Yeah. They are talked about it, what is the problem, how long they have been having this problem, and then they are told how to go about the problem. What are the investigation for wife, what are the investigation for husband. Both the couple, both the partners undergo the investigation at one go. It is not the first wife is put for investigation and the husband come later on. Generally, it is both of them. Yeah. So, by the end of the investigation, we can pinpoint where is the problem. Sometimes with the initial basic investigation, we cannot pinpoint the problem. Then we go for further detailed investigation. Yeah. Except what this patient mentioned, unexplained, hidden. Yeah. That do happen in around 10 to 15% of the patient, or maybe in some clinics about 25%. But that also we come to know after investigation. So you have to investigate both husband and wife together. Yeah. So that you can pinpoint where is the problem.
So, but Dr. Katiyar, is it normally the stereotype, is that the myth, the perception that, it's usually the woman who's to blame, ki she is infertile, she's I hate to use that word, barren. She's the one who's not able to propagate the family name. But it could often be, very well, it just could be a problem, not a problem, like, the man that needs to be given treatment.
So yes, definitely, because what we have so far discussed and understood is that so far the idea is that the onus of getting pregnant and delivering is on the woman.
Yeah.
So therefore the society has associated fertility with a woman or infertility with a woman, and this brings in a lot of societal pressure on the woman, because every time she is questioned as to when she is going to start planning or to have a baby, and the man somehow escapes this questionnaire that the society is putting across to the woman all the time. So therefore these are the problems, and we see women who have been investigated for years at times and no investigation for the male comes across. So therefore we know that there is a big taboo which is associated with infertility, and especially with the thought or the societal norm that only the woman is responsible. So therefore it is very important to raise awareness that it is not just a woman's problem. And these taboos that the woman only can be barren is not true. They have to be aware that the man is equally responsible for bringing a child in the world, and therefore is equally responsible for the so-called barrenness in a woman, because it is up to 1/3 of cases of infertility, the sole cause is in a man.
But can a woman, Dr. Nair, come to you alone? I ask this because, you've dealt with many patients. I'm sure there's all this stigma. What stops infertile couples from coming to doctors, to getting treated? Like as Erica said, she wasted so many years taking all sorts of strange herbs and I don't know what. What are the barriers that prevent couples from coming, reaching out?
Basically, it is lack of awareness. It's lack of awareness, lack of knowledge. Like now, for the younger generation, my advice to them is, if you have been trying for more than 1 year, you are not conceived, better go and see an infertility specialist. Don't keep on waiting.
Yes.
The more you wait, more is the bad prognosis going to happen. So better to see the infertility specialist at the earliest. Within 1 year, if you don't conceive, go and see a specialist. He will go do the investigation, give you a plan how to go about it. It's not every patient need IVF, but he will give you a plan how to go about, what type of treatment is the best option for you.
Okay, so we have established that this is a serious problem, right? Like we're saying minimum 15% of couples. Now this is debatable. What the WHO studies have said, as Doctor pointed out, different countries may be different, but at least it's a minimum 15%, and that's a lot. So Dr. Mittal, let me ask you, what can we do? How does one strengthen the institutional capacity for operations in India? How do we create more awareness? How do we get more people to talk about this so that they know that you don't waste time? You can come in, because then it makes probably the treatment easier, probably makes your bills smaller at the end of the day if you come in earlier than you do later. How do we do that?
Thank you so much for this question. I think what I feel we should do is create more awareness. Now, to create awareness, we need to first of all make sure that we practice clinical based, evidence based medicine. Second, have a patient centric approach. Once we have a patient centric approach, each patient is treated individually in a different manner. So not patient A and patient B are same. So what happens is, each patient you have to make a protocol according to that patient. So what we at Art Fertility Clinics are trying to do, we have something called 3T factors, what we call it. So these are nothing but 3 trust factors. We name it as treatment, transparency and technology. When we mean treatment, we mean that each patient has to be treated on clinical based medicine, evidence based medicines with research led. So each person can have a different protocols of, IVF treatment dosage which has to be given, and at what day, what embryo transfer has to happen, when it should happen. So all that has to be led by clinicians. Second would be my technology. I think equally important other than doctors now is AI based embryology lab, where we know that once the embryo goes to those labs and eggs and sperms are there, how are they managed? It is like an ICU for these embryos till the time we transfer it back in mother's womb. Now, third portion which is important is transparency. In that comes the question of checking out what is good for patient A, patient B, cost factors involved, what all test needs to be done, whether male is involved or female is involved. So all three things have to be done. We have created a significant awareness videos around it. What we are doing is we are going through the mediums, various mediums of media, through digital networks, through camps, through awareness camps, where we want to promote this so that everyone knows what is the right solution and the work to be done for them.
Dr. Fatimi, you've also had vast experience dealing with people seeking infertility treatments. Is it important that if you have problem that you do come and get checked up? What happens to a woman who wants to conceive, or a family, if this issue is not addressed, if it's left untreated? Can that also be dangerous?
You know, before I answer this question, maybe something of interest to let you know. If you go back in time, let's say 30, 40 years, when we started with fertility treatment, there was a lot of concern. The first concern was religious concern. Forget about that. That passed. This time has passed. But then there was a concern on safety of IVF treatment. And people were saying IVF is not safe because you stimulate women, you create multifollicular recruitment, and possibly this is unhealthy. It was a big issue that maybe women who are undergoing a fertility treatment are at increased risk of developing later in life cancer or any other kind of disease. Okay? And still today, many people talk about that. Mm-hmm. But then what happened is that we understood it's not the infertility or fertility treatment which is increasing the risk of cancer later in life. It is the fact of being infertile which is increasing the risk of later in life developing any disease. There is a guy, his name is Kurt Barnhart in the US. He is currently the president of Fertility and Sterility and ASRM. So he published beautiful data. And he demonstrated that women who at a young age, but then you have to distinguish what's the cause of infertility. Is it just a tubal factor? Okay, that's not important. But for example, a woman at a young age who has a reduced ovarian reserve, we know that these women later in life are at risk to have hypertension, diabetics, other diseases like cancer and so on. So today we know reduced ovarian reserve at a young age is linked to high risk of cancer later in life. So you have to prevent these of happening, and detection is the best treatment in medicine. So when you ask me what happens to these women if they don't search advice and they just wait, there are two questions linked to that. What happens with their infertility? This is one question. The other thing, what happens with their health? So imagine if that woman at a young age has a reduced ovarian reserve for various reasons, I think she needs to be informed to ask if in the family is any cancer, also to let her know that from the age of 40 onwards, she has to do tests to detect any disease which might be developing. Now, regarding infertility, of course, the older she gets, the more difficult it will be to get pregnant. This is important not to forget.
Let's bring in Savita then, because Savita, we don't want to make it sound like it's too easy, right? As doctor says, there are issues that come up when you're trying, if you don't get treated, etc. As someone who's been through IVF, are there any changes that the body goes through that you would like to tell our viewers about, that you think our viewers should be aware about, that you yourself weren't expecting or were surprised by?
During IVF and treatment, I don't see any change or strange thing. My pregnancy is normal as other pregnancy.
Erica, what about you?
For me, I don't really have too much symptoms. There are symptoms, okay, like when I was taking the treatment, the IVF treatment, I didn't have symptoms at all until after pregnancy test was done.
Yeah.
And then result was positive. That's the time I start to see changes, symptoms, and so forth.
Well, congratulations first. But let me ask you, undergoing an infertility treatment must have affected you psychologically. You've been dealing with this for 16 years. Can you walk us through how did you manage your mental well-being in addition to looking after yourself physically?
It has not been really easy, but with the help of some relatives, some doctors, and especially for art clinic, hospital, for art clinic, Dr. Sonu, she have really been talking to me. Before I even started the treatment, she would talk to me, tell me, oh, be calm, everything will be okay. You don't have to stress yourself. Just relax, take your treatment, everything will be okay. And I did just so. I just put everything behind. And then I started my treatment with happiness.
After treatment, there was happiness. Savita, I want to ask both you and Erica. We want to leave you with the last word. Savita, pehle aapke saath, what would you say to women who are watching this show, who may be hesitant to go to their doctors, who may be embarrassed about it? आप क्या कहोगे उनको अगर कोई देख रहे हैं हमारे शो को?
First of all, they don't hesitate and shame on that infertility. This is natural, maybe some other cause, but we should trust on doctor and treat all disease. Infertility also a disease, treat like that.
Treat it like any other health problem that you're facing.
Yes.
All right. And
Yes.
Erica, would you have anything to say to anyone who may be watching the show right now?
Okay, for me, what I would like to tell them, they should not give up, especially when it comes to infertility. They should not give up. Always make the doctor your friend. Learn to communicate with your doctor. If there is any problem, oh, doctor, I'm feeling this problem, I'm having this. Because the doctor is not going to guess how you feel. It's you that will have to tell them. So you can be fair to your doctor by telling them the truth. If you tell them the truth, they will know what to do. And you go by doctor procedure. You should not go on the internet, see, oh, maybe I can take this medicine and then I will be fine. No. Go by doctor prescription, go by doctor advice, and everything will be okay.
All right, we live in a world of science. The first step is reach out to your doctor, talk to someone, talk to your doctor, see what can be done to help you. Thank you all for being part of this conversation, of being part of this journey. It's important that we remove all stigmas and the kind of dark clouds that people have. Let's normalize conversations about infertility. Thank you for being a part of We the People.